Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise, glory, and honors to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rakakwadash, double honor to the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations unto the elect of the nation of Israel. This is your brother Ayash Gabar from the GMS Virginia camp, coming at you with another lesson that I pray that you find edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai. The book of Job, chapter 20 and verse 22. In the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits, and every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. And every hand of the wicked is starting to see how deceitfully they've been handled. Of course, we know that this isn't our rest, meaning this isn't our kingdom. This was meant for our chastening of the children of Yasharallah, but the other nations, are starting to realize that they've been left out of the pot, especially the nation of Edom. They're starting to realize that their blessing was something that they've been left out of, and Salakia, their blessing is something that they've been left out of, and a part of that blessing is, the fatness of the earth. They've been left out of the wealth. They've been left out of, of what the elites have been privy to. Well, now the natives are mad. These people are starting to realize, because that veil is being lifted, that they've been dealt a bad hand, and they're constantly being dealt a bad hand. And the only way a lot of them are starting to realize is that the only way there can be any justice is pursuant to the book of Second Esdras, chapter 15. As a matter of fact, let me get that, because this is soon to come. And a lot of people just don't realize how close we are to these things happening upon the earth. And even in that, what manner of persons are ye to be in all holy conversations? Because a lot of people seem to think that they're going to be able to get out of, what's coming. And that is not the case. So let me see where it's at. Salakia. Second Esdras, chapter 50. Actually, let me get this. Let me see. I want to start here. It's a few places that I can get it from, but it's getting. Well, actually, let me get this. Hang on one second. Salakia. Because these people are about to flip their wig. And it's getting to the point where they're starting not to follow directions. I forget where it's at. I know it's in Second Esdras. The course of their actions. Salakia. The course of their actions. The book of Second Esdras, chapter 15 and verse 16. Actually, let me highlight this so I have it on deck. It's Salakia, bros. Because we're on the verge of the book of Second Esdras taking full effect, As a matter of fact, I start at Second Esdras 15 and start at verse 14. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword in their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition among men, invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. A man shall desire to go into a city, and shall not be able. For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. Verse 19. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword. And the modern day sword we know is a gun, but you can have Jake's, well, not Jake's, but you can have people out there with all types of weapons, you know? And if you want to have an idea of what type of weapons that people are crafty to make, you know, look at those zombie movies, uh, and you know, you get an idea of how how crazy things could possibly be. You know, destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation, and that's what we're entering into, great tribulation. You know, because if you've been watching the news, you know, you can clearly see that these people have no intent on slowing down. You know, they have no intent on pulling back. You know, from what I see, they're going full steam ahead. You know, here it is. The Supreme Court told DJT that, you know, his tariffs were unconstitutional. But here it is. He's like, screw them. I'm still going to put a tariff out there. And I'm not even going to do the lowest. I'm going to do one up higher, you know? And if that doesn't show these Babylonians that this man has no regard for their order and for their system that has been in place for hundreds of years, then I don't know what will, you know? Because even these Egyptians have become so subtle. But in the same breath, they're ready to pop, you know? Because even the people that have put DJT in office are now starting to hate him. They're starting to look at him like, yo, we fucked up. You know, we need to do something with this guy because he's getting out of hand. And he is. But you know, what they don't realize is that he's controlled, you know? He's put in place to do a thing, and he's put in place to make, you know, the MOTB, by the way it looks, you know, come into fruition, you know? By the way it looks like he's that cruel Lord, you know? But all we have to do is prophets of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, sit back and watch, you know? But this devil is clearly showing the world that, you know, he's not a man of his word, you know, and he's showing these people, and he's showing his people that he is definitely a snake. But then again, he's told you that he was a snake, you know, but you people put your trust in a system that has never been in place for you anyway. You know, this system was not intended for you Jakes to thrive in. And thinking about it in retrospect, this is a system that wasn't even put in place for you low-level Edomites as well, which is why a lot of you are about to fucking pop, because you're starting to realize that, you know, you're being left out of the equation. You know, so a lot of you, hey, we're definitely in the times where, you know, things could just pop off at any moment, you know. But when they pop off, you know, you just gotta trust in Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, you know, because we've been given the playbook through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. We've been given excellent teachers, you know, excellent men in the faith to guide us down the right path through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. All we got to do now is just wait for shit to happen. But in that process of waiting, or in your patience, possess ye your souls. You know, do the work. You know, do what you can do to forward the ministry, because very soon, even today, you know, they're talking about power outages more and more. And when you watch the news, you know, and when you listen to the news, you're hearing about, you know, these other countries having power outages. Just last year, Spain and Portugal, the entire country had power outages. Colombia, power outages. Cuba still have power outages. Venezuela, power outages, all at the click of a fucking button. You know what I'm saying? And there's power outages happening all over the place, but a lot of you people don't pay attention to these things. And that's why when all of this shit comes down the pipe and it happens to you all at once, which the prophets of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua see these things happening all at once, a lot of you people, a lot of you jakes are going to get caught up in the midst of it. A lot of you jakes, you have to understand that this isn't your fight. You're not sitting in a corner getting warmed up to fight. No, the fighting is left unto Yahweh Shai, because he said, wait ye upon me until I, you know, rise up to the battle, and, that's just paraphrasing, but we're supposed to wait upon Yahweh Shai because we have no standing army, and with a little bit of whatever you got is nothing compared to what this devil got, These motherfuckers can see in the dark, they can read your, they can read your heat signature, they can bring you to your knees by, sound weapons or whatever, And now, if you've been watching the news, they got robots that have guns on them, quadrupeds, robots that look like dogs, with guns on them. And just recently, there was a video that was put out over in China where, they had robots doing martial arts, So, hey, look, we don't stand a chance against this devil unless Yahweh Bashim Yahushua be with us, to give certain brothers that, those superpowers, to defend other brothers, those healing powers, to heal, the flock, gifts that can bring food, or whatever, what I'm saying? But either way you cut the cake, this is not our fight. This is the fight of Egyptian against Egyptian, because you ain't going to make this man fall. That's not your job. Your job is to go out there, prophesy, and do the work of an evangelist, The book of Sirach, chapter 27, verse 26. Whoso diggeth a pit shall fall therein, and he that setteth a trap shall be taken therein. And that's what they're doing. They're setting traps for you jakes. They're setting traps for the men of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, because there's a persecution coming. We understand this, and that's why, during this time of grace, this mercy time, you're supposed to be getting your house in order. You're supposed to be getting your spirit in order, You're supposed to be preparing your heart for what's coming because the evil days are here, Yahweh Shem Yahushua said, seek me early before the evil days draw nigh, and that's what the men of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is doing or has done. Saw him early before these evil days come. We're looking at these storm clouds coming on the horizon. We're listening for the rumbling, We're watching the status of the animals go berserk, running in the opposite direction of evil. We're looking at these things, and we're considering these things through the scriptures. You see what I'm saying? The scriptures is our filter. That's why Yahweh Shem Yahushua said, watch. 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 You're supposed to be watching for what's coming. You're supposed to be paying attention to the affairs of the world. Don't be a part of the world, but pay attention to what's happening in the world, and then you filter it through the scriptures. He that worketh mischief, the book of Sirach, chapter 27, verse 27, he that worketh mischief, it shall fall upon him, and he shall not know whence it cometh. You see, he has his AI, he has his robots, he has his witches, and he has his warlocks. He has, he has conversations with left-hand spirits, or whatever, his monthly prognosticators or whatever, you know what I'm saying, are doing their work. But what they don't realize is that Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai has got them in a trick bag so deep that they actually think that they're going to be able to fulfill their enterprise, not knowing that Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai has got that wrench that's ready to be jammed in jammed in the cogs of their gears, putting a halt to all their plans. You see, they have become so prideful that they haven't even considered Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. We tell them that Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai would bring their enterprise to naught, but they don't believe it. Why? Because their pride is so great. Because Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai allowed them to do so much wicked for so long that they haven't even considered the latter end. They haven't considered the judgment of the shit that they've done. It's not even in their mind. And that's why when all these things start to happen in the earth, then they're going to sit back and say, oh shit, yeah, okay, what I'm saying, they see the chariots, yeah, okay, what I'm saying, they may have seen angels, yeah, okay, they might know that Leviathan is in the waters, yeah, okay, they know that we are the true Israelites, yeah, they know these things, but their pride has deceived them. Thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rocks. Why? Because Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai is long suffering. They actually think that the Lord is with them. Scriptures tell you that. But we're at the end of this man's kingdom. The book of Habakkuk, chapter 2 and verse 5. Actually, I'll start at verse 4. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but he shall live by faith. Who shall live by faith? The elect. The elect is going to have faith in the words of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. But that man that has his soul, which is not upright in him, that's the wicked, aka Esau Edom. Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, and he's very proud. He's very stout. He's even stout towards his own neighbors and even his own people. Neither keepeth at home, who enlarges his desire is hell, and is as death. And that's his mindset. I'm gonna get what the fuck I want, come hell or high water. Let our strength be the law of the land. And that's where he's at right now. Because everything is falling around him, he's being made bare, information is coming out about this man that, is actually shaming his glory, shaming his glory. And the thing is that the world sees it and the world is talking about it, because when I'm down at the plantation, down at the watering hole, hey, Jake is talking about this. Jake's having a conversation about this. You know what I'm saying? And then the ear walk up and feel very uncomfortable and then just walk off. Why? Because it's talking about his people. Because if it was something great, they'll sit there and they'll, hold their hands on their lapel and, stand there with this stout look like, yeah, we did that. But they're not doing that these days. They're walking around like, oh shit, our representatives have done this to us. But then again, not realizing that he was created to be crooked, and that's why the judgment is gonna before the whole house of Esau, such that there should not be any remaining of the house of Esau. And you can read about that in the book of Obadiah. All these things are scriptural and they can't gainsay against it. Yea, because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlarges his desire at hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Um, Babylon the great melting pot. Babylon the Great, the few, you know, you know, I forget what the word used to be down at the base of the Statue of Liberty. Bring me your poor, bring me your meek, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Well, the people started to realize that it's a lie. You know, I went to go get some food last week. And I step into the establishment. You know, and and a heathen was like, "Yo, shit ain't doing good. I'm ready to go the fuck back home. It's safer for me home than it is here." And that too is scriptural, because now these other nations are starting to realize that Babylon the Great has run its course. Babylon the Great has run its course, and if you stuck here during the time of Jacob's trouble, during the times of World War III, during the time when Yahweh Shah returns, then you were stuck here specifically to eat a missile. These people have no idea, man. I spoke on this earlier, but let me get it. Wisdom of Solomon 2:11. Let our strength be the law of justice. And that's their mindset. Their strength be the law of justice. Here it is. They're violating all types of international laws that they set. They set the precedent for all of these laws that, their allied countries are supposed to follow. And now it's coming out that they don't even follow it them damn selves, which is why the nations are mad, because they drunk that wine. So yeah, you know what I'm saying? You you're about to see some very beautiful things happening in the earth, you know. You and one of those things is the fall of your enemies. There are 9 things that I judge. As my friend, let me get it. Let me get it. Salakia. I wasn't planning on getting this. The book of Sirach, chapter 25 and verse 7. There be 9 things which I have judged in mine heart to be happy, and the 10th I was utter with my tongue. A man that has joy of his children, and he that liveth to see the fall of his enemy. And we're witnessing the fall of our enemies. We're witnessing the fall of the heathen. We're witnessing the time of the Gentiles about to be fulfilled. We're witnessing that. You know what I'm saying? And the bros pray for that. Consider yourself blessed to witness these things, to acknowledge what you're witnessing, because it's happening right before your eyes. So this is a little quick lesson, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. As a matter of fact, let me get that definition for full steam ahead, because this is the mindset of this devil. Full steam ahead, out of the Merriam-Webster.com dictionary, and it reads: used to say that something is being done, being done with as much speed and power as possible. So what he's doing with speed. He's doing with much force, because he knoweth that he have but a short time. He knows, hey, look, he knows that his time is short, and there's no wisdom left in Teman, because it's sloppy, and it's so sloppy that veil is being lifted, where the other people of his nation, as well as the other heathen, are starting to realize how fucked up things are, and how fucked up that they've been. And hey, look, it's about to get crazy out here. So constantly pray without ceasing, and seek Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, while the prophets of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua are still out here on the highways and byways. And so with that, I'd like to give all praise, glory, and honors to Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua, Bahashem Rakak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations unto the elect of the nation of Israel. Shalom.